If you're ever in a museum, gallery, or church and happen to see a guy who looks like this, all shot through with arrows, you can pretty much guarantee you're looking at Saint Sebastian. Allow me to briefly regale you with his backstory by dipping into the font of knowledge that is the Encyclopedia Britannica. Yes, this has to do with healing anger. I promise I'm getting there. According to legend, Saint Sebastian was born in Gaul and later went to Rome, joining the army under the Emperor Carinus around 283 CE, and later becoming a captain under the Emperor Diocletian. When word got out that he was a Christian that had converted many of his fellow soldiers, Sebastian was ordered to be killed by the arrows of a Roman firing squad. The archers left him for dead, but he was not. A Christian widow apparently nursed him back to health, and he presented himself before Diocletian, who condemned him to death all over again. This time by beating. This time finishing the deed. His body was thrown into a sewer and found by another pious woman who dreamed that Sebastian told her to bury his remains near the catacombs. Renaissance artists ate it up. It gave them a chance to represent the muscled, rippling form of a strapping young man in the throes of extreme, agonizing emotion. It's truly the sort of stuff relished by humanists devoted to the physical and psychological accuracy of their depictions during a time when the church was like the big patron of the arts. All those arrows and seeping wounds are a bit ghastly, though. I suppose they're meant to be. And they're a pointed reminder, pun totally intended, of the misunderstanding, hatred, and anger that rips through us and across this earth plane. Because energetically, anger and its cousin jealousy really do take the form of sharp, shaft-like weapons when flung at ourselves or at others, whether out loud or in silent thoughts and gestures. That's not to say feeling angry is not or cannot be a really healthy experience. Anger shows us how our boundaries have been crossed. I once heard anger likened to a sentinel walking the battlements atop a medieval castle, keeping guard, ready to ring the alarm and spring into action at perceived threats. What an apropos analogy here, because that's exactly the guy you would expect to belt someone with a crossbow bolt when provoked. But anger is not just useful for smiting our ideological enemies or defending the turf of our feelings, relationships, and possessions. It's also really good for causing illness because it's corrosive AF to the body. The adrenaline and cortisol generated by anger can disrupt pretty much every bodily process over time. And when you're angry, every one of your cells and organs feels just as angry as you do, because all of your cells and organs have their own consciousnesses and are just as sentient as you are. When you send anger at others, they pick up barbs, but so do you. And the stabs of anger we send towards ourselves can tend to prick especially deeply. These projectiles rip holes and stay lodged into the energetic matrix, making us leech vitality along with the influence we have over our own lives. They also continually leak some pretty low vibrational energy into our soft tissues, bones, and the layers of our aura. So, if all that sounds somehow preferable, it's a good thing Saint Sebastian happens to be the patron saint of the plague-stricken. He's also the patron saint of archers and those who wish to die a saintly death. The archers one is kind of brutal for him, I think. I may or may not look like it, but I am definitely someone who has felt plenty of anger. I'm pretty sure my soul just walked in with it from other lifetimes. But even in this lifetime, I've screamed at people at the top of my lungs. I've entertained seriously dark thoughts about how to seriously get back at people. I've broken a chair by stomping on it. I'm not condoning any of that behavior. But given the right cocktail of triggers and vibrations unique to each of our energy fields, I believe we're all totally capable of snapping into that reptilian and mammalian rage that lives dormant within the ancient branches of all of our nervous systems, and the predation, competition, and clawing at each other that it entails. I've also realized that I think there are different kinds of anger that we experience, depending on our level of awareness. One kind is the anger that comes from the reptilian and mammalian brains, the kind we experience when we are living in duality, under notions of right versus wrong, you versus me. That separated place where we don't yet realize everything is connected and actually believe you and me are mutually exclusive from one another. When we get angry from that place of consciousness, Anger is what feels right. It feels so justified because you screwed me over somehow, and that pretty much settles it. And that might feel pretty good for a while, to be a victim with convictions, to get puffed up with hurt pride and superiority, even to retaliate because we feel within our rights. Unfortunately, it's fundamentally untrue. When we do grasp something of unity consciousness that allows us to perceive that everything is made of the same source energy, that all is one, we start to see through all that aforementioned nonsense. Our higher human brain comes online. But our egos can still flare up from time to time. We can still attach to personal identities and narratives and have our boundaries crossed and expectations unmet. We can still get angry, but it's another kind of anger, one that we can no longer act on or even hold on to for too long, because we now know acting on it and holding on to it not only harms the aspect of the divine we've come to know as ourselves, but every other aspect of existence as well. We now know that when one suffers, all suffers, and that's something we no longer wish to be responsible for. Oddly enough, I've found this second type of somehow more evolved anger can make you even angrier, because it can feel impotent. We can feel impotent. It can feel like all the ferocity and veracity within us has absolutely nowhere to go. It can make us want to come down with an even harder iron fist. I've also learned that it is not impotent. It is constructive, and it serves a fabulous purpose if we can pass the initiations it presents to us. We can find an outlet for it by seeing the use of letting such anger highlight our darkest depths and deepest wounds, to expose the most separated parts within us, to help observe our lowest impulses. It gives us the chance to practice alchemy. When we can funnel that savage energy into the choice to transform it and commit to our soul growth, that helps us stop leaking power to ideas of others and shows us we have an array of options and perspectives before us. That can help us take responsibility for our inner and outer reality and stop manifesting situations that piss us off so much in the first place. And it refines our beings and everything else by extension. It also isn't always the easiest thing to do, so I really recommend asking your higher self, teams of light, or your conception of Mother, Father, God for the divine perspectives needed to grow through such situations when necessary. Falling into lower patterns, stagnating, hitting walls, sometimes wanting to hit real walls, can happen. I think it's all part of assimilating into an overall higher vibration anyway. But we can perhaps sidestep some of it by recalling help is just one set intention away, and by implementing some of the practices to come. Another big way of helping ourselves is to properly validate ourselves. It's only more recently I've learned that acknowledging my feelings, even talking a lot about my feelings, is not the same as really feeling my feelings until they dissipate naturally. Neuroscience now tells us that it takes 90 seconds, on average, for any emotion we feel to finish running its energetic responses and chemical processes through our system. Anything after 90 seconds is just us choosing to stay in that emotion. And we probably have some protective patterning in our nervous system that makes us choose to do that. By letting your anger run its brief loop, I promise you will feel better and you will not ruin your vibe. I'm finding it's a legitimate and lasting way to clear emotional energy, to actually get back to being in a high vibrational state. Our natural state is that high vibrational state. It's the emotional junk we shove down inside of us that inevitably brings us down. If anger doesn't dissipate, it only builds up. We cling things bound to wound and limit us, and we wind up walking around as the energetic equivalent of this. We're going to do 2 different healing methods to address our anger. The first is short and spicy for immediate use if you're mad right now, or at any moment. The second will be slower, softer, sweeter for more residual anger that's been stuck in you a while, whether it's accumulated over the course of a stressful period, over the course of your whole life, or it's anger that has just osmosed over from other parallel lives. Both will help your emotional energy find proper resolution and return your physical and other energetic bodies to their divine blueprint. Let's get started. Are you angry right now? Good. Allow yourself to be angry. Really feel your anger, who or what it's directed at, where it sits in your body, the sensations it's causing, any constriction, sharpness, tingling, or activation, maybe in your chest, throat, shoulders, hands, jaw, or guts, particularly. Now, imagine bringing a red flame down from the sky, down from its highest divine source, to engulf your entire body and energy field. It's a bright cherry red, sizzling flame. Red relates to the root chakra, which has much to do with the nervous system and the adrenals, as well as balance and survival. So, really sitting in your anger and letting your anger seethe out, you're going to keep this red flame around you to match intensity with intensity. Burning away and transmuting defensive energy, anxiety, and excess stress hormones generated from being in such a volatile sympathetic nervous system state. Only for 90 seconds. Ready? And go. Still encouraging your anger to sear through you. Allowing any visions it brings with it to run freely across your mind's eye. Breathe deeply. While doing so, notice the red flame burning all around you, maybe seeing dark reddish maroon smoke curling upwards and away, and showers of red sparks floating down. The flame turns any anger spears and arrows within you to pale ash that simply disintegrates. If you want to, and are able to, eventually, you can tell your anger thank you for its fierce protection of you. You may even be able to feel like you're starting to separate it from a bit. Sitting next to it, like you can observe it, maybe even put a supportive arm around it. Otherwise, just let your anger blaze on and the red flame blaze on unrestrained, thinking whatever thoughts you need to. Hopefully that makes you feel a bit less like snapping something or someone in half. You can imagine the red flame starting to cool rapidly around you, hardening into a protective red glass shell, as thick as you'd like it to be. Nice. Feel free to repeat this part of the video or do this exercise on your own as many times in a row as necessary, until you feel your anger start to relent. Next, we're going to turn it down a notch and address any latent anger we might have in a milder way. We're going to start with a breathing technique to bring our nervous system out of the fight or flight or freeze or fawn state many of us tend to chronically live in. It's called box breathing or 4-4-4 breathing, and it's done by shamans and U.S. Marines alike. Start by taking a deep breath in and exhaling. Another deep breath in. And another long exhale. Now, we'll switch to inhaling for a count of 4. Holding our breath for a count of 4. Exhaling for a count of 4. And holding for another count of 4. And repeating, inhaling, 2, 3, 4, holding, 2, 3, 4, exhaling, 2, 3, 4, and holding, 2, 3, 4. And 2 more times on your own at your own pace. And we'll finish with one more long inhale and an exhale. And one more of each of those. Inhale and exhale. And that'll have brought your heart rate and breathing rate way down, calming and centering you in the process. Now, gently take your awareness down into your physical body and out through the multiple layers of your aura, just staying present. Then imagine a bright spotlight suddenly switching on above you. It shines so intensely that your entire energy field gets illuminated to the point of becoming transparent. You can see through yourself like a pane of glass. This brilliant, almost X-ray-like light will highlight any energetic structures of anger that have settled into you. These may look like arrows, spears, javelins, darts, needles, or spikes to you. Some may look sharper and newer than others, or some might be duller and rusty, like they've been in there longer. Just intuitively scan yourself, noticing areas where they're sitting or have formed clusters. You can even tune in to particular ones and ask them what the anger that forms them is related to, who generated them, you or someone else, or how long they've been with you. When you're more familiar with where and perhaps why you've been carrying these accretions of anger, the light just as suddenly flicks off, plunging you into total darkness. This is a reassuring darkness, and you recognize yourself to be immersed in the inky blackness of the void, the space of everything and nothing at once, the place of all potentiality, the 0 point of creation and destruction, said to exist between dimensions and universes. You begin to feel and see plush, sable-colored fabric swirling around you and through you. It's supple, as if caught in a magical wind. Voluminous sheets of black velvet are billowing through your entire energetic system, enrobing the points of anger within you, loosening their grip, dislodging them, lifting them up and away, sending them back into formlessness. Feel the freedom this brings you and the openness it creates inside of you. You sense the black velvet also begin to trail away into the void, dragging away any lingering prickly bits of anger with it. A soft glow now begins to gradually dawn as the space around you lightens up again. It's not so bright as before under the X-ray, though it fills up with a strong, sparkling white light. These sparkles start to float down and sink into your aura and skin, feeling like little gritty granules of sugar. They're bringing in the vibration of sweetness, scrubbing your chakras, meridians, tissues, and cells clean of any residue left behind by all those points that were removed. It might feel kind of satisfyingly crunchy or abrasive, and you'll sense bits of these sparkles getting finer and finer, microscopic even, working down to the molecular, submolecular, and purely vibrational level of your being. These sugary sparkles finish filtering through you, trailing down with the lower energies they're carrying away, and dissolving completely. You then begin to feel a warm, unctuous sensation as a thick, honey-like energy, like a golden syrup, oozes over you, filling up any holes or empty spaces in your energetic matrix and covering you all over with the golden, Christed light of unity consciousness. It's rich and weighty and really smoothing over your aura. It leaves you feeling quite luxuriant, pacified, and new. When that reaches its full effect, start to bring your attention back to your body and physical senses. And let that syrupy energy settle and get even denser as it starts to drip down through your legs and feet and emerges like two soft golden roots that delve down through your lowest chakras and the layers of the earth, eventually connecting you into her crystalline core, grounding you deeply, and allowing her love that accommodates all life upon this planet to flow back upwards, continuing to support your energy field now that these shifts have occurred. Wonderful. Those are two pretty simple exercises for dealing with anger. Do both together or mix and match them according to how you're feeling. Remember, anger can reveal a lot to us and should be totally felt to be totally resolved. It's not always the work of a moment either, and it might take some revisitation of these emotions and their charges to fully and eventually let go. All healing tends to happen in layers. But without any tools to help self-regulate in the moment or ever, we're way more likely to explode or stuff it down and explode even more explosively down the line, placing blame outside of ourselves or on ourselves, staying unsatisfied for doing so, and literally pelting out acrimonious energetic arrows in all directions. Feel free to vent or share how this has helped you stop venting in the comments below, and I will catch you all again soon.